Hi there, and welcome to the Cult of Cinema. In the 12 years that I've been doing this, one of the most common questions I get asked is, do you have a favorite? Do you pick a favorite when it comes to labels? I try not to have like a favorite, but there are labels that more represent me personally than others do, or at least certain aspects of my personality. The one that we're looking at today is a very important one to me. It was founded in 2006, and if you hear the name David Gregory, then you automatically think of this label. It's Severin Films. They have put out, in my opinion, especially in the last few years, some of the most important titles that have been put out on physical media, period, bar none. Their box sets are to die for. At this point, I think they have probably put out the greatest box sets of all time. The follow-ups are being, Indicator, Scream, Arrow, and Criterion. The fact that Severin can lead all those is a massively amazing thing. When I went to Canada, one of the first things I did was look for certain Severin films. Unfortunately, they did not show up in my local areas. I checked the Sunrises, I checked the other shops, but there's still a couple that are highly on my want list. And I look for them first. They were the very first things that I look for. So tonight, we're looking into Severin films. What makes them so important? Why it's so personally important to me? And why I think Severin may be that underdog company that you should just be giving a bit more attention to. Because down the road, some of these Severin releases are going to be things that we talk about, that we enjoy, and in my case, that we study. So, it's Christmas a few years back. My better half has picked up some amazing cinematic gifts for me, including something that I treasure to this day. And I'll be honest with you, I go back to the well a lot when it comes to this. I'm a Hitchcock fanatic. And she had me the Ultimate Alfred Hitchcock box set. I was excited to get it. However, she got me this other title. And I was so excited to receive this title that she thought I didn't like the Hitchcock box set because I oohed and ahed a bit too much over this other film. But this film had some meaning for me. Not in the cinematic Hitchcock way, but in the fact that I'd only seen it when I was younger. And it came with this edition. Specifically came with a documentary on video nasties, something that I'm extremely fascinated with, an era that I truly adore. See, she picked me up House on Straw Hill. Udo Kier, Linda Hayden, Fiona Richmond. It's truly like a classic. It's violent, it's sleazy, it's unusual, and it's Severin. It's something that they do extremely well. But what would really kind of like pave the way to something they do extremely well was the third disc. See, here they put on Band the Saddest Videos, which is a really cool documentary on video nasties. Video nasties is something that Severin excels in. It's a passion of David Gregory's. he wants Severin to be able to put out as many video nasties as possible. For those that are unaware what video nasties are, it was an era in the UK when films of this ilk, films like Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Evil Dead, were getting randomly banned. And some of these were banned for years. They were put on a list. They were quote unquote video nasties, ones that the public couldn't be entrusted to watch on their own. It was an unusual time, something that definitely bears looking back so that you don't do it again going forward. Now, we're going to look at a lot of different titles here, and we're going to see sometimes things that kind of go together. Then we're going to see a progression, a change in what Severin does, even the way that they present their releases. Birdemic, Shock and Terror. The original Birdemic is still one of those movies that you put on when you have a bunch of friends in because you want to, you want to have a laugh. You want to maybe have a drink or whatever and just watch a really silly, totally inept film. What's crazy is that there's 3 Birdemic movies. So you can actually buy a lenticular covered box set for extremely cheap with all 3 of them. And I swear to God, if you could regress in filmmaking, the director has regressed in filmmaking, making each of these extremely fun to watch and great to have in your collection. At this point, I only have one. If I ever can get the box set for cheap, I definitely will. By the way, it has a lenticular cover. It's another thing that I adore. See, only Severin would take a film like this and put this many special features on it. We have 2 audio commentaries here. We got deleted scenes. Birdemic Experience 2 are featurette. A whole bunch of stuff. It's a fun film. It's actually good to have in your collection. Now, the next one was introduced to me by my dad. So my dad was a musician. He played in many bands for many years throughout his life. A musical talent I don't have. But he's also a massive fan of the cool and the absurdist and the monster and the older cinema. Now this one kind of like goes together because 1, it's a crazy monster movie. 2, it has a little known band in it called the Del Airs that my dad was familiar with. And that's Horror of Party Beach. It has one of the most stupid looking monsters you'll ever see right there. But you won't forget it. It's a fun film, although this is yeah. I don't know what else we can really say about Horror Party Beach other than just check it out. They actually have an interview with one of the band members on there, so worth checking out for that alone. And we followed up with one of my favorite things. In the VHS era, one of the things I would collect were trailer tapes. I love trailer tapes. See, back in the day, before this whole internet thing, a lot of the ways that you would see films or know of films that you hadn't seen, that you weren't aware of, was you'd buy these VHS trailer tapes. Sinister Cinema did a whole bunch of these. And you'd see films on there and you'd write down. I would write down. I'd get lists of films that I wanted to see, films I was unsure of. Sometimes you see the title come up in the trailer. Sometimes it would come up in a different language. So you were still on the hunt. You couldn't go online to figure it out. Nowadays, the trailer tapes have made way for the trailer compilations on Blu-ray. Umbrella does a great job with those. And when it comes to the Kung Fu Trailers of Fury, you really can't go wrong. It is a great little one, and there's a follow up to this one, which I don't have yet, but I will eventually pick up because put this one on with my kids, and we had a lot of fun with this one here. We had the Dragon, Death Blow, Two Champs of Shaolin, Daggers 8, Snake and Eagle Shadow, which was, of course, Jackie Chan. Um, as also Shaolin Woodman, Story of the Drunken Master. So many classic that I definitely recommend you check out. Let's follow up with one of my favorites, the real Halloween 2, the original Halloween 2, by Joe D'Amato. It is absurd. Absurd is a sort of, kinda, maybe remake, sequel to Anthropophagus. Now, Anthropophagus gets a lot of cred on just being an insane film. It's gross, and it's definitely well constructed. However, absurd is, I'm going to say this, it's going to be slightly a bit of a hot take, 10 times the film, in my opinion, that Anthropophagus is. I love this movie. I love the way this is constructed. I love the insanity and the way they try to push this off as a North American type of film where people are so excited to go home and watch football because everybody goes home and watches football with their gigantic plates of spaghetti. Yeah, that doesn't give anything away when it comes to it. Um, yeah, you're so excited that you run over a biker and you just keep going. I think that's how they assumed how excited North Americans were about football. And I'm not going to lie, aside from the spaghetti part, they weren't totally wrong. This one has a slip cover, but that's over there. And it is Retribution. This is a more recent one, and really dug this one actually. It has a CD soundtrack by Alan Howarth. I'm a fan of Alan Howarth's. I really became a fan of his during his collaborations for the Halloween soundtracks that he worked on. But Retribution is an interesting little film. There's a ton of special features on here, and I have yet to dive into it in the way that I want to. It came with a booklet, and it goes into the different tracks on the soundtrack. See the director Guy McGuire, who of course worked on everybody's favorite sequel, Stepfather 3. I'm not joking. He did work on Stepfather 3. Look it up sometime. Blackenstein. Now, Blackenstein is a unique blaxploitation film in that it probably wouldn't be remembered that much, if aside from the title and the fact that unfortunately the producer of the film was murdered, which makes it even more of a curio. Anybody that's ever watched one of those true crime, listened to one of those true crime podcasts on one of those Wondery things, probably picked this up for that alone. Now, it is an interesting and fun little one because we do get two cuts of the film on here, a theatrical and a video release version. There's a few minutes difference. But yeah, for a lot of us, we wanted to know the true story behind the scenes. And it's interesting. Interesting in a different way, do not judge me, is The Sinful Dwarf. Now, The Sinful Dwarf is a masterpiece of sleaze cinema. That's really the best way to put it. It is strange, it is insane, it is unique, and you definitely could make this film today, my friends. Honestly, probably wouldn't want to make this film today, but it's a nice little throwback to a specific era in time. It does include a second film on here, an actual X-rated film called The Blue Balloon. And it was done back in the day when X-rated cinema meant something. When it wasn't just those scenes, it was the story. There was a whole aspect to it that you were intrigued to find out about. And this is one of those movies. This is one of those movies that got me right here. How often can you say that about a film, especially nowadays, but that style of film? that it actually touches you a bit. Now, before the whole Triple X era, there was the much more innocent, the nudie cutie sexploitation era. And Frank Henenlotter decided to make a documentary doing the whole scope behind sexploitation. It's a massively long documentary. It's 134 minutes long. Not only that, but there's over 3.5 hours of like sexploitation shorts and stuff from the Something Weird archives on here. It's really, really good. The late David F. Friedman had a lot of good stories to tell. And luckily he got this documentary got made and he got to tell those stories before he passed. Even at the length of the documentary, it's more than a one-time watch. It's something you'll go back to. It's interesting. It's unique. And Henenlotter definitely has a great voice when it comes to archiving this type of cinema. Speaking of this type of cinema, let's look at Felicity. So, if you've never seen this one, this is a fun little film. It's much along the lines of she's a younger Emmanuel, and her name is Felicity. It is an Australian film. I think this was shot on so it's supposed to be in Hong Kong. I'm not sure if it was shot in Hong Kong or not, but it's I can't remember. But sometimes movies, it's a magical world of trickery. The neat thing is it came with two extra films, two Mondo films that were done by the same director. The ABCs of Love and Sex and Australia After Dark. And both of these films got previous releases from Severin under their Intervision label, and both of those releases had audio commentaries with them. So you think, okay, well, we get the bonus films, that'll be good. But no, they actually took the extra time to include the audio commentaries along with that. So Felicity itself has its own special features, has its own commentary, but so does ABCs of Love and Sex and Australia After Dark, which is absolutely fantastic. All of them got commentaries by director John DeLamond and Mark Hartley, who, one of them is by Mark Hartley. And Mark Hartley, a lot of you guys are going to know because he did Not Quite Hollywood, the documentary on Ozploitation, where Felicity was actually highlighted during it. There's so many great films put out by Severin. And those are, I would consider, the blue era of Severin, and that the cases were blue. We have a couple more of those, actually. But still, that would change. That would make way for Severin to start to get its own identity and really stand out on the shelf, because the next ones that I'm going to show you, they're interesting. Severin would move towards creating their own identity with moving away from the blue case and towards the black case. Now, when you normally think of a black case now, you probably think of the 4K UHDs. But Severin were kind of doing it before that. So when they did their 4Ks, he actually kind of did some unique things with them. Before I get to those, though, there's a couple that really stood out, and I really want to show them. There are two films by Jess Franco, done with his original muse, Soledad Miranda, who unfortunately passed way, way too early. Now, these each have a black slip that goes over them with the title on it, because he liked the artwork so much that he didn't want the artwork to be marred by a title or a logo. First up is The Vampire Lesbos, and it is a fantastic film, and in my opinion is the best vampire film that he ever did. Soledad Miranda is absolutely captivating in this one. You can't take your eyes off her. That's the type of actress that she is. It came with a second version of the film on here. There was one more that they wanted to showcase with Soledad Miranda, and this is this one right here. If you've got the Stephen Thrower Jess Franco books, then this is going to look really familiar because it's the cover of one of the books. And this is She Killed in Ecstasy, an absolutely fantastic film that everybody should have in their collection alongside Vampire Lesbos. It's truly a great film, and it really shows the work that he can do. This is the one that came out after Vampire Lesbos, and of course has Howard Vernon in it as well, who would be a Franco mainstay. I do recommend picking up the books that Stephen Thrower put out if you're a fan of just Franco, like I am. There's two; they are massive tomes, but those along with Nightmare USA are really the books that you want to get if you're buying Severin and Vinegar Syndrome releases. Speaking of Franco, he is highly shown and represented in Severin. This is probably my favorite, or definitely one of my all-time favorite Franco films. It's an interesting one in that it's done in a period where Franco seemed to be cut off at the knees. During the 80s era of Franco, he didn't have as much funding as he did previously. He had to fight harder and scrounge more to keep doing what he did, to keep up his love of cinema, to keep making film after film. Oftentimes, this can show in the budget restraints of each film that you see. But another thing that shows is a hungry director, an angry director, a frustrated director, someone who's letting it all come out on screen, and no more so than this film right here, Bahia Blanca. Limited at the time to I think 1,000 copies. Bahia Blanca is one of those releases that hasn't come back from Severin like the others. A lot of people see this and think of the movie Ready or Not, but it's very very different than that. It's a great film. There's erotic aspect to it, but it's a bit of a somber film, and it's one that I really like, and it shows a depth to Franco and an angriness that it's like when you watch your favorite comedian and you realize suddenly that the comedian isn't just telling jokes; they're literally, they're showing their pain on stage. Franco's doing that here, and it's a fantastic thing to watch. On a less serious side, and on a really, really fun side, another director that's really been highlighted is, well, Claudio Fragasso. Claudio Fragasso and Rosella Drudi are names you're going to see pop up in Severin over and over again. Robo Wars, which is crazy and a ton of fun. Actually, I have the BAM t-shirt. Yeah, you can look up what that acronym means. But not in front of the kids, so it's a lot of fun. If you like these kind of cheesy sci-fi Italian action films, then yeah, if you want to see, yeah, we got Bruno Mattei directing this one. Yeah, Predator, RoboCop, want to see them mashed together. Robo Wars, what you go for. Here's a movie that I'd only seen in like cut versions ever, so it was really interesting to see the uncut edition of this film with its original soundtrack and everything. See, Ernesto Gastaldi is one of the big names when it comes to giallo filmmaking. When it comes to Italian filmmaking in general, he's one of the great screenwriters for that time period and for that era. When I think giallo, I think Gastaldi as much as I think Argento or Martino or Fulci. The one place I kind of didn't think of for Gastaldi was this film. I actually had no idea that he had written it until I got this release. And that is Werewolf in a Girl's Dormitory. Here you get the original uncut version of the film along with the CD soundtrack. There's another thing. When it comes to Severin, they're really big on putting in CD soundtracks. Another interesting thing they did with this one is there was sort of a photo comic, so they included it with the release. Photo comics were a big thing back in the day, especially in Italy, and they eventually made their way over to North America, mainly and primarily under the name Photo Romance. but you'd often pick up those photo romance books, those magazines, they'd be glossy, and you'd open them up and you'd see a lot of the actors that you'd seen in your giallo films that you'd watched before, Italian thrillers, would be showcased in these photo romance books. I remember my cousin; she used to pick them up all the time, and I'd see actors and I'd kind of wonder where I'd saw them before. Like this person looks really familiar, and then I'd be watching one of the Argentos, or I'd be watching La Fulci or something along that lines, or I'd go be watching Stage Fright by Suave, and I'd be like, yeah, that's where I saw them before. They're Italian actors, sometimes like big actors, sometimes big actors. All right, I got these next two over at Bay Street Video in Ontario. If you're in Ontario, make sure that you check that place out. And these came with the soundtracks. They're kind of Fulci. Well, one of them is kind of Fulci. That will be this one right here, Zombie 3. So Zombie 3 is quote unquote directed by Lucio Fulci. Now, Lucio Fulci got sick, so he didn't end up directing most of this film. Though this is definitely a fun little film. I actually really enjoyed this one. Bruno Mattei was the one that took over, and from Robo Wars and so many other films we're going to talk about here. The first 3,000 came with a soundtrack. If you're lucky enough to be able to get one with the soundtrack included, I recommend you do so. One of Bruno Mattei's best friends, until a clash had them actually kind of feuding for years, directed the next zombie film, Zombie 4, After Death. And that's Claudio Fragasso. Claudio Fragasso, with his, I think it was his spouse, Rosella Drudy, did a ton of films. You're probably most familiar with him when it comes to Troll 2. But trust me, he has done a lot more films than that, and a lot crazier ones too. The next movie I literally bought for the documentary. Do I like the film? It's okay. It's the definition of okay for me. Nazi exploitation is something that you got to get it right. And this one, it's done by Betzella, so it's the guy that did The Devil's Wedding Night. So you got a good hand behind the camera, but it never really maybe I have to rewatch it. I'll be honest with you. I've seen this one, saw this one previously, but I've never actually watched this Blu-ray release of the film. I go directly to the documentary because he did a feature-length documentary, Fascism on a Thread, the strange story of Nazi exploitation cinema, and that's Beast in Heat. It's a crazy little curio where I've never actually rewatched this film since the days of maybe early DVD, but it'd be interesting to see it, especially if that's an uncut version of the film. And if it's Severin, that's about as uncut you're going to get. Bodo Giovinazzi is probably best known and will always be best known for Combat Shock. It's a nihilistic little film that definitely leaves an imprint on you. But it wasn't the only film he made. And this, although definitely a bit more mainstream, definitely has some really interesting performances, especially one by a young Tim Roth. If you've never seen it, I 100% recommend it. If this is still available, especially this edition, it came with a bonus CD soundtrack, and it was hand numbered by the director, so this is No Way Home. It's a really, really good film, and I definitely recommend it. James Russo's great in this. Deborah Kara Unger does a fantastic job in this film. And mine is number 400 of 2,500. The fact that this didn't sell out day one is a damn shame. Moving into the documentary territory again, we have Future Shock, the story of 2000 AD. 2000 AD is a comic in the UK. If you've ever seen a Judge Dredd film, well, you can thank 2000 AD for that. They're the ones that created that's where the character came from. And so many other characters. If you're a fan of Vertigo Comics, if you like Sandman, if you like The Invisibles, if you're a fan of Doom Patrol, particularly the Neil Gaiman era of it, all of those guys came. If you like Watchmen, all those creators came from here. Whether it be Alan Moore, Neil Gaiman, Mark Millar, some like Dave Gibbons, so many of them came right out of 2000 AD. Not sure if Dave Gibbons did, but I definitely know the other guys did. Paganini horror, I think, is an acquired taste. It is Italian cinema. It's a little thriller. We have the fantastic Donald Pleasance and the always beautiful Derry Nicolotti in here as well. I've always enjoyed this one, but some people tend to be left a little bit dry when it comes to this one here. Not me. I think it's a lot of fun. Again, it does include the soundtrack, and collecting Severin means getting a nice little collection of soundtracks as well, especially when you're getting those limited editions, and I do recommend it. If there ever was a film that I'd use to teach filmmaking, it's the next one right here. It's a slow burn of a film, but it is magnificently done. The camera work is impeccable. The score is fantastic. Think of it as an Australian version of kind of like, in a weird way, we're going to say The Shining, but in a very weird, unusual way. It's Next of Kin. Next of Kin is a wonderful, wonderful film. If you haven't discovered yet this one here, I recommend this become a cinematic discovery for you. Have the patience with the film because it does take its time getting to where it wants to go, but you have a wonderful ride going there. There's some beautiful sequences. There's the what I like to call the sugar cube scene, and that scene in itself, you could teach an entire film class on. It's a wonderful film. If you've never checked it out, you really should. One of the greats of the genre, one of the legendary original Scream Queens, I guess you could say, is the beautiful Barbara Steele. And right here we have 3 of her films. We have Nightmare Castle, Castle of Blood, and Terror Creatures from the Grave. 3 films, each with their own special features, all done here on Blu-ray. Looking at Tygon films, much like Amicus and Hammer, they had their own like period of time where they did some really good stuff. And we're going to look at a couple of Tygon releases. There's 2 in total that I think I have that Severin put out. One of them I really wanted. It was a bit of a slower release, in that it takes a while to get going. But I enjoyed it. But if somebody told me that they were kind of mad on it, I'd understand. What's The Beast in the Cellar? What's really great about this is there's a good little kind of like feature on Tygon films themselves, which if you're a fan of Tygon, definitely bears viewing. So it is an interesting little title with, yeah, check it out. I wasn't sure about this one, but I wanted to pick it up because one, I was a fan of the actress that the movie's about, but that being said, it is a bit on the Mondo side, so there is a bit of like, it is fairly exploitive, and it was done by Dick Randall, the guy that produced films like Pieces, so you knew it was going to be a unique one. So it is the wild, wild world of Jane Mansfield. I can understand if James Mansfield's like family were not a fan of this movie, to be honest with you, but it's definitely an interesting watch. Let's follow this up with an actual really good film, a exploitation film that for years only had like a really bad looking, horrible releases. It's an excellent little film, and I'm a little bit biased because I am Canadian and I do have an affinity towards exploitation. But I think this is a particularly good one. So if you haven't seen it, Kathy's Curse is definitely something that belongs in your collection. Next up is Black Boots Leather Whip. Not as well. It's just Franco, so yes, it'll be a bit raunchy. But it's actually there's more of a kind of a comedic aspect to this. It's a sort of a neo noir. So I really got to watch this one again. I haven't seen this one in years. It's one that I bought more recently, and I want to dive back into. Now, one that I did watch was this one right here, and it's got Lena Romay and Robert Foster, and it is, of course, Antonin Mayans is Robert Foster was the name that he used in North America. Is Cries of Pleasure. That is a film. One, listen to it with headphones on because Cries of Pleasure. There's a reason for that name. Two, it's a really freaking good film. Like it's again a darker film, but a very good film when it comes to Franco's work. He worked with Antonin Mayans a lot, especially in the '80s. And next up is this. It's I guess kind of a spy-ish film. Now this one is more of the comedy. I always get like Black Boots, Leather Whip, and this one confused. Maybe because the Mayans, the usual Mayans connection for a lot of these releases. But that is Night of Open Sex. Just an interesting little title, which I'll let you guys discover on your own when we do a Jess Franco, like more of a deep dive. All those are good, and films to check out once you've checked out other Jess Franco films. But one of the ones that you should have, the ones that you should own, along with Bahia Blanca, is this one right here, and actually plays a lot alongside. Like would be a great double feature for Bahia Blanca, and that is one of Jess Franco's best in that era, and that is The House of Lost Women. House of Lost Women is a fantastic film. It's one that if you haven't seen it, you definitely should. It is definitely more of a somber, sometimes even depressing film, but it has some wonderful sequences in there. During this period, he shot a ton of films. 1982, he shot 13 movies. This should not be as great as it is, but this is a really good film. People often kind of compare it to something like Louis Buñuel's style, and I can see that, but it truly is like a Franco classic. Next up is a Fulci classic, and one that he is not normally known for. See, Fulci is probably known most for his gore and his, and even maybe for some of his his budding commentary with films like Don't Torture a Duckling. But this, The Devil's Honey, is a great film. It's a film that could get lost in the shuffle of just being another kind of a softcore or erotica style film. But there is a lot to be said with this film, a lot about loss, a lot about the way that we remember people that we've lost, the way that we misremember people that we've lost due to grief, due to tragedy, due to trauma. This is a wonderful film. Not such a wonderful film, but so much fun. Because we're getting back to Claudio Fragasso again, the director of Troll 2, in a much better film than Troll 2 in my opinion. Night Killer. You got to see this movie. It's insane. This is a movie that caused the fight between Bruno Mattei and Rosella Drudy. So, and Claudio Fragasso. See, here's the thing. When Fragasso was making Night Killer, he wanted to make a serious movie. He wanted this to be like kind of this was going to be his magnum opus. I kid you not. The producers didn't feel that it got sleazy enough or insane enough for what they were used to. So the behind his back hired frequent collaborator Bruno Mattei to come in and shoot some extra sequences. To say Claudio Fragasso was upset would be an understatement. Speaking of Bruno Mattei, Shocking Dark. Watch this one with my better half. Yeah. So much fun had here. Greta is in this one, who you most likely know at least from the Demons film. But if you've never seen this, you really see this movie. It is insane. It's fun. It's like It's like Aliens, and spoiler alert, it's like another famous science fiction film as well, um, but definitely one to look into. One of my favorite Sergio Martino films isn't what you initially go for. Uh, it's more of it's a giallo, but it's lends itself towards supernatural giallo, to do something a little bit different, a little bit more unique. I have the T-shirt for this one as well, by the way, and it's the reason that I have. See, another thing I should talk about with Severin is that Severin have always been great when it's come to branding, to marketing. So a lot of times I'm kind of, I feel like the film can get lost in the shuffle when we're trying to like make trying to do like bonuses and extras and that type of thing. But there are times when it's gotten perfectly, when the marketing, the extras, the bonuses suit the film so much that you can't imagine nobody hasn't thought of it before. Severin did the Giallo with all the colors of the dark, and the next one I'm going to show you, it was a black glove bundle, and it's one of the greatest things that I have in my collection. Are these here, Severin, all the colors of Giallo, black gloves. I love these. The fact that they had the idea to make this a thing is absolutely fantastic. I've used this props in many films. But this film here, All the Colors of the Dark, has Edwidge Fenwick, George Hilton, and Susan Scott. So, again, just utterly fantastic people. And Ivan Razmof's in this one too. Ivan Razmof is in this one. Written by, you guessed it, Ernesto Gustodi. They put out one of the best, if not the best, like documentaries on Giallo cinema that's been out so far. The other one I recommend is Synapses Yellow Fever. But this one is great. And what makes this one great is not just the documentary, but everything else that's included with this as well. See, All the Colors of Giallo is a 3-disc documentary set. The first disc, you get All the Colors of Giallo. It's a great documentary. If you've never seen it, I definitely recommend it. But watch a lot of Giallos first, because it's going to give away a heck of a lot of stuff for you. There's also the Giallothon, which is over 4 hours of Giallo trailers. Making that even better is that it comes with an audio commentary from Kat Ellinger, who is one of the queens of the audio commentary. Anytime you see a movie and she has a commentary, it's an automatic buy. You also get an interview with John Martin from the Giallo pages. That's not disc 1. Disc 2, well, deals with Cremi, kind of the sort of like the German equivalent, the precursor to the Giallo per se. Where we get a 91-minute criminal trailer compilation, as well as a interview with a film historian. And on the third disc, well, the strange sounds of the bloodstained films, a compilation of songs from various Giallos. This, my friends, is a must for absolutely anybody serious about collecting Giallo genre. If you don't have that, you have not got a complete Giallo collection, or you haven't got seriously started on it. Get this one. It's got a great cast. It's insane. It's actually by a really good director. So, The Devil's Reign. So I kind of talk about it. We got William Shatner, Ernest Borgnine, Tom Skerritt, I think, is in this one as well. Ida Lupino, John Travolta. Directed by Robert Faust. Kid you not, the guy did Dr. Vibes. A lot of fun we have with this movie. Just a ton of fun we have with that film. A film where not a lot of fun was had. Well, not by the director because he went through hell when he was making it. Was this right? Well, Lost Soul is about the film. It's on to Dr. Moreau. See, Richard Stanley is probably the biggest fan of Island of Dr. Moreau that you're ever going to meet. He's a massive fan of the stories, massive fan of Wells. He's a massive fan of Lovecraft. But unfortunately, this film was doomed. It was so doomed. This is a fascinating documentary to look into behind the scenes, into filmmaking, what can go wrong, how things can go wrong, and you're not going to believe it when you see how much can go wrong and in how many different, bizarre, unique, unusual ways. It's a 3-disc set. You can buy different versions, but I recommend a 3-disc set because it comes with the H.G. Wells files, which includes a 1921 German version of On Dr. Moreau and a CD-ROM that has which is basically an audiobook with On to Dr. Moreau, read by Richard Stanley himself. The next one I've got a slight bit of an issue with, not with the film, which I thought was a lot of fun and way more, just more kind of comical and interesting than I expected it to be. It's a film by Mark Savage. It's just that I feel it could have been done on the DVD format. I'll just let you read the title. But yeah, it's an insane little film. I love Intervision, but I wish Intervision would have stuck with DVD. They just seem to fit there so well. Revenge of the Living Dead Girls was one that was sent to me by a viewer, and I was really glad it was because at the time the soundtrack edition of this was already sold out, and they sent me this one. It is a French film because, who doesn't think, you know what would make zombies better? If they were nude and like oddly hot. Penelope Spheres, The Boys Next Door, is a fascinating film that is all too real in its depiction. Maxwell Caulfield and Charlie Sheen shine in this one and do some of their best work ever. If you've never seen it, I 100% recommend it. It's violent. It's fantastic. It's a must. During the time when we all got stuck inside, the time that we dare not speak its name, they decided to make a documentary. It made it harder because you couldn't have people in the studio. But they took what would have been the limitation. They made it work for them. They made what I consider to be an even better documentary on this here, genre, on the anthology genre, the portmanteau. Tales of the Uncanny was a wonderful revelation for me. I've watched this at least 3 to 4 times. What's really great about this edition is I made sure to pick up the limited edition, the extremely limited bonus edition, because it had 2 extra films on it. See, when you get this, an extra film, it gets Eerie Tales, Unusual Tales. But if you get the limited edition, you get the 1965 Master of Horror movie as well. And I made sure I grabbed that edition. We've reached that time that I know so many of you look forward to. It's the slipcovers and box set portion of this video. We've got some interesting ones here, some really interesting ones. We're going to start off with the 4K edition of a film that I never thought I'd own, at least not like this and not this good. It's one that when I got it, me and my cousin Raj, we sat down the night that I got this one and watched it together. He'd never seen a Paul Morrissey film before, and he had never seen this one. But by the time the movie was over, actually before the movie was over, he said, "Is there more? Is there more from this guy?" And I said, "There's a Flesh for Frankenstein we have to look for as well, and that will be come out from." Spoiler alert: Vinegar Syndrome. You've already seen that video. Blood for Dracula. It's an absolutely stunning film. It's a Paul Morrissey film. It got like publicized in the day, as like Andy Warhol's Blood for Dracula. Something that Paul Morrissey, the director, was really peeved about, to be honest with you. But this is a great addition to this film here. And it has, of course, the wonderful CD soundtrack, which actually, by the way, has 30 tracks on it. One of the sad things about the Flesh for Frankenstein edition is that no CD soundtrack was included, but for this one, there is, and it's much, much needed. Not for everyone, but definitely for me, is another Jess Franco release, and that had Lena Romay and Evelyn Scott, and that is Shining Sex. It's kind of a science fiction-y title, and yeah, it's one of his, definitely leans more of his towards the explicit sense. Um, so if you've never seen it, know that going in. Sadly, the actress that starred in this movie has since passed away, but she was one of those actresses that shone bright for the period of time that she was here, and her name is Tawny Katane. Known a lot for the White Snake videos, for fantastic, like mane of red hair, wonderful red hair. But this is Gwendolyn, or Gwendolyn and the Pearls in the Land of the Yik Yak. It's a wonderful release for this film, and when I got this on sale, and it came with 6 lobby cards, and it said damaged. The only damage is a little crease on the slipcover, which made me get it for an insanely cheap price. Killer Crocodile is so much fun. It is so much fun. And that would be great in and of itself. But it also includes Killer Crocodile 2. And you can't not have Killer Crocodile 2 if you've got Killer Crocodile. A standout for me, both in its presentation and due to the fact that my dad used to talk about this movie so much when I was younger, is Jack the Ripper. It actually has it's a black and white film with a color sequence in there, but the color sequence is very important. It's a wonderful Jack the Ripper film, and I love this here slipcover. It looks like one of those pocket novels, so those graphic novels that you would see, not graphic novels, pocket books you'd see at your local airport if you're going to take a flight, or back in the day at a drugstore. It has that style and kind of flow and feel of it, and it is a fantastic one, by the way. This one includes a special European DVD bonus disc as well. When I think of special features done extremely right, this one always comes to mind. I talk about it a lot, and it is Skinner. Skinner's a great film. It's a really good film with Ted Raimi doing a fantastic job in the lead. Ricky Lake is really good in this. Tracy Lords is absolutely fantastic in this film. But what makes this one, what really stand out, is, well, Ivan Nagy directed this. He's probably not best known for directing this film. It's actually the girl that he dated at the time that is probably best known, because it was Heidi Fleiss, the Hollywood Madam. Now, Ivan Nagy, there's been, and I apologize if I get his name wrong, but pronunciation, that's always one of my kryptonites, was often thought to be allegedly involved in organized crime. And the special interviews on Skinner talk about that. They talk about the Hollywood Madam thing, which was going on at the time that this movie was coming out. It did affect the film, and not in a positive light. But definitely an interesting one to watch. Remember when I mentioned Tygon before, and I talked about Beast in the Cellar, and I said there's going to be another Tygon release? Well, the other Tygon release isn't just an okay Tygon release. It's an absolutely fantastic film. See, folk horror we'll talk about a little bit more in a few moments. But one of the greats of all time is this one right here, right up there with The Wicker Man. is Blood on Satan's Claw. If you haven't seen this, I really, really recommend that you do. This is a special limited edition with the slipcase. What else is limited? I don't know. Don't remember. Oh, bonus CD soundtrack. There, finishes. That tells you right away. But it's a great, great release. And a great film. If you haven't seen Blood on Satan's Claw and you're a folk horror fan, I definitely recommend that you check this one out. One of the greatest movies I ever saw, one of the great horror ghost stories of all time, is George C. Scott in The Changeling. This scared me as a kid. It scared me as an adult. It wasn't the maliciously insane ghost stories of you see today or like yesteryear. It was different. There was uniqueness to it. There's a very Canadiana aspect to this film. It makes sense. It was shot in Canada. This has the soundtrack included as well, and there's a 4K release out there. So if you haven't picked up this Blu-ray release, then go for the 4K. But either way, Changeling should be in your collection. Lucio Fulci was supposed to direct the next film. Unfortunately, Lucio Fulci had passed on. Luckily, see, for most of Fulci's career, people think of what a big director he is now, especially if you're in the horror genre, how fantastically lauded he is. Books have been written on him. Studies have been done. There's been whole film festivals, Fulci film festivals. But back in the day, a lot of directors really, especially over in Italy, they did not get the recognition or the support that they got over here, where we really were fascinated with the stuff that they did. Luckily, he got to go to a Fangoria convention just shortly before he died. And he got to see the love that people had for him. And it's good to know that he got to see that. It's good to know that he didn't go thinking that nobody appreciated what he did, that we really appreciated the work that he had done. So this film could have just been stopped. See, Dario Argento was going to be funding it for him. He wanted to help out Fulci. People had often thought, they're enemies and all this, and who's better, Fulci or Argento, and all this kind of fan tribalism BS. At the end of the day, he was really affected by Fulci's passing and was working to help get this film made. Now, the film did get made, and it got changed quite a bit because the director became Sergio Stavaletti, and if that name doesn't ring a bell, as a director, it should ring a bell because Sergio Stavaletti is kind of he's the Tom Savini of Italy. He does massively great special effects, and if you've seen some really great gore sequences, you've seen some movies like Opera, for instance, Steinhall Syndrome, you've seen the work of Sergio Stavaletti. The Wax Mask is a fantastic release, and has some features on here that might have made me tear up, just gonna say, but absolutely adore this film. I literally bought this film for all the wrong reasons. Because I was making an order and I wanted to hit free shipping. And that was the reason I picked up this film. Luckily, the film was frigging fantastic. Emmanuel and Francois, one of the Italian Emmanuel films. See, the thing about the Emmanuel films is that you can break them up to the Silver Crystals and that era of Emmanuel, the Black Emmanuel, as they're called, the Lord Gemser Emmanuel films, the ones that I want that set. I want that set so freaking much. I looked for it all over. I couldn't find it. And these are done differently. These are more intense in a way. It's actually kind of a remake of another film, but it's fantastic. It's a fantastic film. All right, I got to cover up the cover this one here, and that is Emmanuel and the Last Cannibal. Now, this is one of the Lord Gemser Emmanuels, and I actually have two different. I like this movie so much. I don't like cannibal films, but this one I really enjoyed, and I liked it so much that I've got an 88 films edition of this, and I have this here edition of this. This has the this soundtrack because you know it does, and my, I will show one of these days. I will I will have that Emmanuel set, just like my dad, just like Malcolm will get that set. It'll be right over there. Gemser does a fantastic role. See here, Gemser's manual is different than like the Silver Chris Emmanuel. The Silver Chris Emmanuel was in a way more erotic. She was a woman, like taking onus of herself, discovering her own like sexuality. Uh, Lori Gemser's Emmanuel was different. Her Emmanuel was the type that was like she was out there. She was a reporter. She did like different things. She went on adventures. Um, it was a much more. There's a little bit more action driven aspects to it as well. Fantastic film. If you don't have the Emmanuel Around the World box set, pick it up. I saw it at my dad's. It is probably hands down the greatest box set ever put out of a series, especially of that type. The Nothing can surpass it at this point. Trust me, Severin will try, but at this point, nothing can surpass it. Speaking of nothing can surpass it, we've all seen Jaws and Jaws 2. We saw the 3D Jaws. We saw the cash grab Jaws with Michael Caine. But have we seen the amazing Jaws 5? Cruel Jaws? Of course, it doesn't exist, right? This film is no longer a Severin release. When it was, though, it may have came, who knows, with a book, a novelization of this as well. This is an Italian film called Cruel Jaws that was over in Italy, like dubbed as Jaws 5, which was something they weren't allowed to do. And that's the reason this is such an infamous slipcover, is because the slipcover actually got Severin into a bit of trouble. They actually lost the rights to a film because of it. Got to cover this one as well. Massacre in Dinosaur Valley is a really, really good film. It's way better than it should be, and it's not at all what I thought it was going to be. It's one that I got because I wanted Cruel Jaws. Another fun release, and I'm not sure what this cover is, but The Uncanny. See, The Uncanny is a portmanteau film with Peter Cushing. It's about a man that talks about evil of cats. So, so we got evil cats in this one. But it's got a great cast. It's done by Milton Subotsky, of course, who did, he was part of Amicus. And so he did a bunch of the portmanteau films. But Peter Cushing, Ray Milland, Donald Pleasance, Samantha Eggar, John Vernon. So many cool actors in this one as well. Definitely worth checking out. Another one I gotta kind of censor. Patrick Still Lives. Patrick was an excellent film. Patrick Still Lives. It's a sleazy film, but it's a good one. It's really good, and I absolutely adore it. Slipcover is not very good, so I'd say you pass up on slipcover edition of that one. You're not going to miss out on anything. I'm a big fan of Barry Prima, and I love the stuff from Mon Macabre, where they have the Jacques films. But I'm not a massive fan of cannibal films or that ilk. So this is one of the Severins that I have in my collection that I have yet to ever watch, to be honest with you. Probably the only reason I've kept it is because it's one, it's Severin, and I love the company, and two, it's a video nasty. So I have it in my collection because I eventually want to have all the video nasties. That is Primitives. It's I'm guessing an interesting release. I've never watched it ever, not even on VHS, so it's not one that I know. Now we've seen them shine, but it's time to see where they really shine. There's absolutely no hyperbole when I state that Severin put out some of the best and most important box sets of all time. We'll start off with the Hemisphere Horror set. A fantastic set. This was done by the guys that did, the Blood Island trilogy, a set that unfortunately we pre-ordered from Amazon and never did get. But this is a great set. It's even better, much better actually than the Blood Island series. We have Curse of Vampires, Blood Drinkers, Brain of Blood, and a special bonus double feature here with the Black Cat and Torture Chamber Dr. Sadism. Now, the Torture Chamber, Dr. Sadism, and Black Cat were bonus ones, so they weren't remastered like the other ones were. But man, were these better than we expected them to be. This is the type my better half loves. This was 100% one of those that I picked up for her and enjoyed myself. Wasn't sure I was going to enjoy it as much as I did, but it's definitely one that we watched together. Next up is 3,276 of 5,000. It is the Amicus collection. Now, I am a massive Amicus fan. So to have Asylum, and now The Screaming Starts, The Beast Must Die, which was a favorite of mine, and The Vault of Amicus, which is a really great one. Dr. Terror's House of Trailers, right? Yeah, 5 hours of trailers. 5 friggin' hours of trailers is here. With a optional commentary by Kim Newman and David Flint. Along with a 3 hours of an audio interview done with Milton Sabatsky. And an hour-long interview with Mark J. Rosenberg as well. So some great, great stuff on here. This was only for this here set. Strongly recommend. If you can ever get this set for a decent price, pick it up. I know people don't like to pick up the thin case sets anymore, but it's really, really worth it. Next up is one of the best sets that they ever put out, and that is the complete Umberto Lenzi Carol Baker collection. So it is 4 giallos, directed by Umberto Lenzi, starring Carol Baker. 4 absolutely fantastic giallos, by the way. There's not a bad one among the bunch. Some people would say that Knife of Ice isn't quite as good, and I can understand the argument for that, but either way, these are fantastic films. So Sweet, So Perverse, Orgasmo is so good. A Quiet Place to Kill, Knife of Ice, 4 Blu-rays, 2 CDs, fantastic CD soundtracks for these, because these are some incredible films with some wonderful music that you need in your collection. The other one that you need to get, and I also need to get, is the Umberto Lenzi Thomas Million collection, which more recently came out. Makes a great companion to that one right there. They put out so many great editions. There are 2 volumes of these here so far. I have the first one, and it is the Eurocrypt of Christopher Lee. I absolutely adore this one here. Remember when I mentioned the Torture Chamber Dr. Sadism on that Hemisphere Horror release and how it wasn't remastered? Well, it finally got a remaster in this edition right here, and that's actually a really good one. We got a bunch of stuff on here. We got Sherlock Holmes and the Deadly Necklace, Challenge the Devil, Crypt of the Vampire, Castle of the Living Dead, The Torture Chamber Dr. Sadism, and Theater Macabre, which was an anthology television series that Christopher Lee hosted. And they're all in here in this huge hardbox set with this massive book as well that I definitely recommend. And you'd get hints to the second set and what could be on it with this one right here. I've yet to pick up the second set, but eventually it's a must-have. Severin box sets are not just regular box sets. They're box sets that stand the test of time. They're things that you watch, that you rewatch, things that you study. There's things that you can't believe exist, because who else but Severin would think to put out Al Adamson, the Masterpiece Collection. 32 films from Al Adamson, almost his entire filmography, almost his entire collection of films. And different cuts of different films as well, with a massive book If you want to get an idea of how many films are on here and like the scope of the films, just pause right here. And you'll see that there's all types of films here, from regular exploitation films to horror, westerns, blaxploitation, even kids films. It's insane the amount and the scope and depth of these films. What makes this even better is it has the documentary on Al Abson, which is a fascinating documentary on a fascinating man, which turns from an incredible documentary on a guy that did so much great stuff and oftentimes with so little, to a true crime documentary. Almost just like that, at the blink of an eye. You won't forget it, and you'll watch it more than once. And it'll give you, once you watch it, you'll get a different appreciation for Al Abson's films as well. As far as sets that, in all honesty, could have been put out by Criterion, could have been put out by a BFI, or a Masters of Cinema, but it wasn't. It was put out by Severin Films. Kayla Janice is incredible. She's Canadian, and she's well known in the world of horror for her when in youth, when she's helped to get film festivals and stuff in Canada. I think it was in Vancouver. To later on when she wrote some really great books like House of Psychotic Women. She's always been a voice in the horror genre and like in the study of horror. And when Blood on Satan's Cloud was being made, David Gregory tasked her with doing a featurette on folk horror. So she started working on it. And she went down this fascinating rabbit hole. And what happened was she couldn't do the featurette for the documentary. It was for the film. It was becoming too long. It was becoming its own thing, its own documentary. A documentary that ran over 2 hours long, that was intense, that really dived into everything that is folk horror. David Gregory could have rushed her. He could have said, no, I want the featurette. Let's get that done. We'll get that put on there. We'll look at that later. But he didn't. He gave her the time. He gave her the let her go out and get the resources to actually make the documentary. Get it put in film festivals. And after all that was done, after the accolades, after all the rewards, after all the awards that it got, rather than just put that out on its own, as its own thing, a carefully curated, amazingly put together box set came out. All the Hansby Hours. This one was a gift from my viewers. One of the greatest I've ever gotten. And one of the most daunting. I have yet to do a full, complete review of this set. It's a really great set. And I go back and forth watching movies and watching featurettes over and over again and watching the documentary. And I'm almost overwhelmed by what's included. I'm getting there. And I will get there. But it's one that I'm letting soak in. It's one that I'm letting take its time. It's one that I'm enjoying. It's something that I think everybody should have. If you're interested in folk horror, you have a serious interest in horror, and this genre specifically, this is magnificent. The documentary is absolutely captivating. It's a long, long documentary. It's a watch. It's a get your snacks and get your drinks ready because you're going to be transported to this world for quite a period of time, and you're going to enjoy the hell out of it. And then you're going to get some of the most interesting, unique, captivating films that not just good films, but films that let you kind of hear the voice of other cultures, of other places, and in some cases, other worlds. Whether it's North America or Australia, or films from all over, absolutely every continent. All the Hansby Hours is an amazing set. This one I will open up more so. When you get this incredible book, and at this point, this is not a booklet, it's a book. It's got 156 pages. We're at book level. Some wonderful illustrations, some fantastic write-ups. But we're looking at films here. We've got, of course, the documentary. Films like Eyes of Fire. And look at the artwork, this like actual art. La Pedrica. Witchhammer. Just so many great and wonderful films in here. Films from all over the world. Films that will haunt you. Films that you will remember. Films that'll challenge you. And who doesn't want that? I know I do. And every time I open up this set, every time I look into this, every time I put a disc in, I know I'm in for quite the ride. All Hansby Hours, along with the Laurie Gemser Emmanuel Around the World set, are two that, above all else, I think everybody should have. It should be on your shelf, should be in your collection. Now that being said, you gotta like those type of films. If you don't, then it's not gonna be in your collection, nor should it. But if it's a film style that you like, yeah. And Severin has put out other ones too. They put out an Andy Milligan box set. They put out a set, of some of Ray Dennis Steckler. Directors that would never get an in-depth set if it wasn't for a company like Severin. So, when I get asked, what's my favorite company? I don't have an answer. It changes from day to day. That's the truth. It just depends on what I'm watching and what captures my interest, what captures my attention. Now, if I'm being asked, what's a company that really helps encompass a lot of what I like and a lot of what I love? Well, Severin is one of the companies that fits that bill. From the giallo to the weird, to the video nasties, to the in-depth academic box sets. Severin has a little bit of everything, but a lot of greatness. Thanks for joining me here today in the Call to Cinema. And we'll see you here again next time, where we'll dive into yet another collection and we'll see where we go. Because next time, we're talking about, no, for that you wait. For that is another video. Like, share, subscribe. If you want to join the Patreon and get these videos early, because if you're watching this video when it came out, you're watching this video in the Crimson Call, which is my Patreon. And we've had a lot of videos on there, including this one's being recorded when a special live video is being done later on today. So it's a lot of work going into today. Thanks for watching. My name is Aaron. I'll see you again here next time. Let me know in the comment section down below your top Severin films. What are your favorite Severin movies? What are the ones that you can't do without? What is a title that you'd like to see them bring out in the future? Maybe you've got like a director or a genre or a box set that you think only Severin can do in the way that they do it. Let me know.